All right. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us tonight here at the Pacific Northwest AES section meeting. Thank you for coming and being a part of this. My name is Greg Dixon, and I am currently serving as the Aes Pnw Section Chair. And I'd like to welcome you all here to our meeting tonight. We're going to be discussing diversity and inclusion within the Aes Pnw section. And we're going to have a presentation as well as a panel that will be focused on this topic. Before we get started on the presentation and panel, we'd like to go over just some items of business related to our section. Next month, we have a meeting planned on April 7th. So mark your calendars, April 7th at 6 p.m. is going to be when our next meeting will take place. It will be online, taking place on Zoom once again. And next month we'll be working, we'll have a presentation from Casper Baby Pants. Casper Baby Pants, who you may have heard of. He is a children's artist, and he's well known for playing in a famous rock and roll band called the Presidents of the United States of America. A lot of people have heard their song Peaches, but a lot of people may not be aware that Chris Ballou, who goes by Casper Baby Pants, also is a children's artist. And Chris has produced over 20 albums since 2002. And they're really, really cool and they're really good. And so next month we'll be discussing the production and recording of Casper Baby Pants children's albums. And I'm excited about this meeting because it's a special event where we're focusing on promotion as an all ages event. And while children are always welcome to attend our events, the event next month specifically is going to be presented in a way that both adults and children can enjoy. And so we want to invite families and children to this meeting. Families and children are all welcome to join us next month. In June, we are going to be having our elections. And so I wanted to reach out to all of you and state that if you want to serve on the Aes Pnw committee, first of all, you are required to be a member of AES, so there is that one requirement. But if you'd like to serve on our committee, please consider that. And if you want to learn more about that, you can go onto our website. And if you want to run for a committee position, there's a link on there to email the section chair, who is me, and I'll be happy to hear from you and I can answer questions about it if you want. Or if you know somebody that's already on the committee, please feel free to contact them to learn more about being a part of our committee. I think that's all I have in terms of upcoming section business. I'd like to turn the time over to Dan Mortensen to talk about an initiative that he has created and he's been working on since this past, it seems, I guess, late spring of last year. Dan, could you tell us a little bit more about what you're doing with Tea Time Topics?
Yeah, thanks, Greg. It's called Tea Time Topics because we start at 3:30 in the afternoon on Saturday afternoon, every Saturday. And that's my tea time. So I had to call it something. And we go for about 3.5 or 4 hours talking about audio subjects, and we get into stuff, and it's really wonderful. There's some real smart people who show up and share with us. And just out of curiosity, there's a bunch of people here who attend them and have presented at them. And if you could raise your hand just while you're there and in the video, yeah, as presenters or attendees. It's a bunch of folks, and there's a bunch more too. Last week, did I say already, we went into mid-side microphone technique for 3 hours. And this week, we're going to have Michael Patterson, who is the Shure Corporation archivist. He talked to us a few weeks ago about the evolution of the Unidyne microphone, basically. And he had a great time and is really into Freddie Green, who was the guitarist for Count Basie and played acoustic guitar in a big band. And he was so important to the sound that Count Basie said, if you can't hear Freddie Green, I'll have the band play quieter, which was pretty amazing. And Michael is going to tell us about that. And then we're going to have a talk about Tom Fine playing a 3 microphone recording of an orchestra that his parents, Bob and Wilma Cozart Fine, made in the 60s, and listen to each of the microphones to see how that contributes, how each of them contributes to the mix of it, the blend of it. And then Luke Paholsky and other people who are in attendance are going to talk about audio for live streaming and things that are necessary. It's free, it's fun, and for me anyway, and for other people too. I have to force everybody to leave at 7, which is pretty incredible to be doing that at 4 hours. I open the doors at 3. So if you want to come to it, email or chat your email address to me and I'll send you the Zoom link. And that's this Saturday at 3:30 Pacific, whatever time that is locally to you. And thanks a lot. Back to Greg.
All right, great. Thank you, Dan. At this point, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the technical requirements for the meeting. As we've spoken about already, I mentioned we'd like all of you to please use your real name for in Zoom. And it sounds like everybody's got that down, so I'll move on. While the presenters are speaking tonight, we'd like to ask everybody to mute their mics and mute their video, please. If you have questions for any of our speakers or presenters tonight, we'd like to ask that you type those questions into the chat rather than just opening up your mic and asking them. So please, if you have questions, please type them into the chat. There will be a Q&A that will take place after the message today, after the message and the panel conclude. So we'll have a Q&A with all of our speakers tonight after the panel has concluded. If for some reason one of our moderators happens to mute your video this evening, there's an issue with Zoom where if we end up having to mute your video, you will not be able to turn it back on. And please don't take this as a personal slight. If your video gets muted and you want it to be turned on, at the end of the meeting, we have a time where everybody can introduce themselves and we can get to know you a little bit better. And we're going to be doing that tonight after the panel concludes and the Q&A has concluded. However, if we've muted your video and you can't turn it back on, please ask myself or yeah, you can just ask me to turn it back on and I'll turn it back on for you. Please note that we won't mute anyone's video unless someone has accidentally turned on their video when it shouldn't be on. So again, please mute your mics and mute your video during the presentations. At this point in time, I would like to make a brief message before we introduce our speakers. And also a little bit about the breakdown of the meeting. I think I actually have this in, yes. All right, so I'm ready to go. Here's my message for you. The PNW Section Committee recognizes that currently there is a lack of diversity in the field of audio engineering. And we are actively working to find ways to feature diverse speakers and increase inclusion at our meetings. As a part of this effort, we are hosting this meeting to raise awareness surrounding these issues and also give an opportunity for underrepresented audio engineers in our community to be able to speak and to be heard. The meeting tonight is titled diversity and inclusion within the Aes Pnw section. And while diversity and inclusiveness within our section will be discussed, I also want to clarify that the meeting tonight is about diversity and inclusion related not just to our section specifically, but also to the local PNW audio community, the AES as an international organization, and also with respect to the field of audio engineering as a whole. And so the meeting tonight will be broken up into two parts. The first part of our program tonight will be a message from Cecilia Wu and Mary Mazurek, who are the co-chairs of the AES's Diversity and Inclusion Committee. Mary and Cecilia will talk to us about the work they've been doing, as well as the initiatives they've been working on in the Diversity and Inclusion Committee. Following Mary and Cecilia's message, we will begin the main portion of our meeting, a panel with Angela Dane, Johnny Angel, Ryan Lee, and Lillian Blair. Before the talk in the panel, I will introduce each of the speakers. And then please note that tonight, some of the topics we'll be discussing may be sensitive. And I'd like to ask all of us to please keep this in mind and try to be open-minded and understanding, and to be kind and considerate to one another tonight as we meet with one another. I guess it should go without saying, but I will say that. And at this point in time, I'd like to introduce Cecilia and Mary. Cecilia Wu received a PhD in Media Arts and Technology from UC Santa Barbara. And as a multimedia artist, Dr. Wu received the Young Alumni Artist Grant Award from Stanford University, and her work was acquired by the Denver Art Museum for their permanent collection. Dr. Wu is an assistant professor at the University of Colorado's College of Arts and Media, and the editor-in-chief of the Society for Electroacoustic Music in the United States, Seamus. Mary Mazurek is a Grammy-nominated recording engineer. The Recording Academy awarded her nomination at the 61st Annual Grammy Awards in the category of Best Engineered Album, Classical. She's also a broadcaster and radio podcast producer. She has engineered thousands of sessions for albums and broadcasts. She is on the faculty of Columbia College's Audio Arts and Acoustics Department and DePaul University's School of Music. She's also taught at the Illinois Institute of the Art and the Merritt School of Music. Mary is a voting member of the Recording Academy, and she has served as the governor and task force chairperson in that organization. She was elected the first woman president of Engineering and Recording Society, EARS, of Chicago, and continues to serve as a steering committee member. She is a member of the Audio Engineering Society and is chairperson of the Diversity and Inclusion Committee. She is currently a member of the exclusive DPA Masters Club and an educational advisor for Leapwing Audio. Mary is also an interdisciplinary artist whose work is based in sound and image. She received her MFA in interdisciplinary art from Columbia College, Chicago, and is currently pursuing a PhD in art theory from IDSVA. Sorry if I butchered that. Her work has been exhibited in Chicago, New York, Mexico, and Berlin. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Mary and Cecilia to talk to us about their work in the Diversity and Inclusion Committee. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Greg. So Cecilia, I guess I will start it off with a little bit of background on the Diversity and Inclusion Committee, and Cecilia will fill us in on our ongoing endeavors. And thank you again so much for having us, and I really must commend the Pacific Northwest section for holding space for such an important topic, as especially women and women identifying people are grossly underrepresented in the audio industry. For example, a study in the UK conducted by Georgina Bourne and Kyle Devane, entitled Music, Technology, Gender, and Class, found that students between the ages of 5 and 16, 40% of girls were interested in music technology. However, that percentage drops to 25% at age 16 and further falls to 10% when these young women enter college. And as we may be aware, the number of when the number of women in music technology careers falls even further. And this is evident by a very recent study by Stacy L. Smith and the USC Annenberg Inclusion Initiative, as they found after examining 800 Billboard Hot 100 popular songs and after looking at 8 years of Grammy nominations, they determined that only 2.6% of producers were women. So that means that it's 37 male producers to every 1 female producer. And AES fares only slightly better. In data gathered by D&I Committee member Kat Young, it was found that between the years of 2016 and 2019, that only 10.23% of conference participants and conference presentations were made by women, and only 1.79% were made by non-binary people. So there's clearly work to be done around diversity, equity, and inclusion in audio. And again, I really commend the Pacific Northwest section for holding space for this topic. And as Greg noted, this topic can be very sensitive and can be very uncomfortable as it brings up unconscious biases into consciousness. But this awareness, along with the discomfort, is part of the work. And as my teacher, Murray Allen, used to say, you have to be willing to make yourself uncomfortable in order to progress. So I applaud you all for your attendance and your willingness to listen and learn from this presentation led by Dr. Angela Dane. But first, just a little bit more about the AES Diversity and Inclusion Committee, because Cecilia and I want you to know that we are here and the committee is here as a resource. So this committee was begun by Leslie Gaston Bird and Piper Payne in 2016 and is comprised of approximately 40 professional members. Our mission statement is the AES Diversity and Inclusion Committee strives to ensure diversity in the AES worldwide and the audio industry as a whole by improving accessibility, welcoming diverse genres, embracing emergent audio fields and research, and radiating inclusiveness to all races, gender, and gender identities, physical abilities, ages, and nationalities. Some of the accomplishments that the committee made under the leadership of Leslie and Piper are guidelines for conference and convention presentations were developed. There was a code of conduct written, and the D&I Committee partnered with the University of Lethbridge to support their research efforts regarding microaggressions in the studio, which is to be published very soon. So please see the D&I Committee as an ever-evolving resource. And now I'd like to turn it over to Cecilia, who will talk about how we are continuing that work. Cecilia?
Okay, thanks, Mary. First, I wanted to thank you very much for the session that can host this kind of event, because I think there's many global existing issues in D&I across the Audio Engineering Society. And as you may know, Mary and I, we just started our tenure here, probably approximately 3 months. But we have been, on many meetings and many issues since we are here. So currently, we are actually working on a few strategic plans, such as, designing a web page for the new AES website by the third quarter of this year. So we will encourage you to submit content for that page, diversity and inclusion page. We're also working on, helping more women scholars to publish their work to try to break down the very high gate for our journal to make it more diverse. And also we are trying to, attract more diverse body of the member, such as the new generation of our women audio engineers, non-binary engineers. Also we are trying to work on a geographical data analysis and collection in these future years. This is kind of something more kind of not that easy because certain issues, but yeah, we're working on those kind of things. And as Mary says, that we are actually here to hear your voice, and we would like to welcome you to participate in our group, in our committee. And we will leave our email address here, so you can contact us if you would like to be part of our committee. We're really welcoming you. Okay.
Okay, thank you so much, Cecilia and Mary, for the message, and thank you for the work that you're doing. At this point in time, I'd like to reiterate what Dan mentioned in the chat, that tonight, in terms of Q&A, if you have questions, please post those into the chat, and the Q&A session will take place after the panel has finished speaking this evening. At this point in time, I'd like to invite the panelists to turn back on their videos if they would like. And I will introduce our panelists tonight. All right, first, Dr. Angela Dane lives in Seattle, Washington, and teaches women's studies at the local community college. Her book, Sabina Spielrein, The Woman and the Myth, was selected for the gold medal in adult nonfiction by Forward Reviews in 2017. She's a staff writer and editor for Tom Tom magazine, the only publication in the world dedicated to female and non-binary percussionists. She owns and operates the only female and Black-owned drum studio in Seattle dedicated to empowering women through the drum kit, Atrocity Drums. Additionally, she is the drummer for the all-female heavy rock band Atrocity Girl, whose members are recording and engineering their own debut album through a self-built home studio under the auspices of their LLC. She is currently enrolled in the University of Washington's Audio Production Certificate Program in order to learn the ropes of the recording, and she started the Seattle's, how do I pronounce that? Sorry.
The Women in Audio?
Yeah.
Women in Audio, yeah, but with the X.
With an X.
Yeah.
Women in Audio Facebook group. It's spelled WOMXN and audio on Facebook. So have a look for that. Women in Audio Facebook group to connect to and collaborate with others in the community. Thanks for being here. Johnny Angel is a small engine mechanic in Everett, Washington. She is a multi-instrumentalist, producer, and short film director, and she is the front woman for Atrocity Girl. Ryan Lee is a live sound engineer and barista from Seattle, Washington. Also a multi-instrumentalist, Ryan fronts 2 bands in addition to playing bass for Atrocity Girl. She is a videographer and brand consultant. Lillian Blair, who tonight will be speaking but also functioning as a moderator of the discussion, is a producer, engineer, and audio educator working out of the Seattle area. She is currently a staff engineer at the Vera Project Studios, where she chairs the audio committee, teaches studio recording and audio mixing and mastering. Lillian interned at the historic London Bridge Studios and received her degree in audio engineering from Shoreline Community College, AAAS, and in creative writing from the University of Washington as a BA. Thank you so much. Please welcome Angela,
Yes.
Donnie, Ryan, and Lillian.
Thank you so much, Greg. Shall I kick things off? Lillian, is that okay with you?
Oh, absolutely.
Awesome. All right. And thank you, Mary and Cecilia, for being here. So, women working in professional audio, as Mary was talking about, comprise a very small percentage of all audio engineers, and only 5% of all audio engineers are women, and only 2% are producers. Of a wide sample of engineers studied by Avid, only 4 were women of color. 4 people, not 4%, were women of color as of 2019. But COVID has disrupted the statistics by turning many women into bedroom engineers, building home studios and learning how to record and mix from teachers and sources online in order to keep creating music during a global pandemic. In 2012, Carrie Keyes, known for her live sound engineering with Pearl Jam, and Michelle Sobolchik participated in the Women of Professional Concert Sound panel at the AES conference in San Francisco. And they established Sound Girls to provide women working in professional audio a community to come to for support and advice and for empowerment and inspiration. And we created the Facebook group Women in Audio to connect women and non-binary engineers and to learn from each other's wisdom and experience without fear of intimidation or inherent bias. It began as a small group of 5 and quickly grew to almost 300 members from all across the globe. We have interviewed legendary engineer Susan Rogers to speak to the group, and we hold master classes on the basics of audio, mixing, and mastering and recording. Professionals in the field, like Latin Grammy nominee Maria Elisa Yerbe, have given demos of their mixing techniques and methods. On January 14th of this year, Leslie Gaston Bird, author of Women in Audio, was interviewed by our group to discuss her research as well as the lack of representation of women of color in the field. And Seattle and the larger PNW area in general is no exception in this regard to lack of representation of women of color in audio. The group is extremely productive and encouraging, clearly responding to a demonstrated need within the community, which the Aes Pnw Section can represent. Speaking to the chapter level, is this section representative of its larger PNW community, and how does representation vary across all sections of the AES and each community represented? Amazing strides have been made at the top by electing Mary and Cecilia to the D&I Committee and Leslie Gaston Bird and Piper Payne as governors. I think looking closely, though, at each community's audio life as represented by a section is the necessary next move. So take it from the top and really move into looking at each section represented and the people therein. Being a member of AES myself, I have noticed a lack of women in general and women and non-binary audio engineers of color specifically. What can we do to increase engagement among these communities? It's been stated that women in the field are hard to find, when in fact they are not. Sound Girls alone has over 16,000 members, which leads me to wonder how hard others are looking. Sound Girls created the EQL, a global directory of women in audio and production. So you can go on there and you can search your specific city and a whole list will pop up. Omni Sound Project, based in Texas, is a wonderful resource providing classes and chats with female engineers every single week via Zoom and on Instagram, so the accessibility rate is extremely high. Women's Audio Mission, based in San Francisco, has trained thousands of women in hands-on work experience in audio and placed over 2,000 of them to work in the city. Is there some kind of program like this available to those in the PNW that actually makes it a point to train women in studios and then place them in internships or live sound gigs? A few days ago, when speaking about comments made about Sylvia Massey's body during an interview that she gave and after the interview, it was said to me, well, look at the source. Since these comments were coming from men, and, quote, men are simple, I suppose it was assumed that I should excuse this kind of unprofessional behavior that women have had to deal with for generations due to the fact that boys will be boys. But Sylvia Massey is an icon, a professional, a mind-blowing engineer whose body of work and methods of mixing are unparalleled. And yet the vast majority of comments made by men in the forum were about how, quote, well she's held up for her age. This not only highlights how ageism can affect women in the field, but brings up a focal point for tonight's discussion. Do women's look determine her worth? Do good looks lead to a good career? Does aging out affect women at a higher percentage than men? Are good looks a detriment? Questions I've asked myself before working with a male engineer. Quote, is this shirt too revealing? If I dress down, will I look unprofessional? If I dress up, will I be considered coming on to someone? If I smile too much, will that be considered flirting? If I don't smile enough, will I be called a name? I bring this up because every one of these questions has led to a different experience with engineers in separate Seattle studios. Smiling too much has led to an obsessive chain of personal messages by an engineer who, when I rejected his advances, threatened me and said, "You won't make it in this city." When I dressed down, I was still called honey. And when I accomplished an innocuous task at the mixing board, I was called a good girl. When I met with another engineer at a studio to talk about becoming an intern, he led me on a tour with his hand massaging my lower back until I asked him to stop touching me. Needless to say, I was then led to the exit. Experiences like this led our band Atrocity Girl to record an album on our own, with the mentorship of Lillian Blair and Rachel Field, and built an at-home studio. We dove into recording and mixing, facing new challenges every step of the way, but empowered by our love for music. When I enrolled in UW's audio production certificate program, I fell more in love with mixing, not only for the band, but by the possibility of what Lillian might call painting with sound. It has been one of the most amazing journeys of my life this far, and also one of the most complicated. For example, a friend of mine enrolled at the same time in Shoreline's audio production program and quit after the first day when her professor told her that, quote, as a woman, she will never be capable of being as good as her male classmates. She was the only woman in class and felt so intimidated and dismissed that she left early and never went back. During my second quarter at UW, I was told in front of my peers that as a woman, I would have to be better than the rest of the class to stand out. The sad thing about that statement, though, is that it rings true. I feel it even more so as the only person of color in this quarter's cohort. The program lacks any women or non-binary teachers and 0 professors of color. When I asked why that was, I was told that it's typical. Many of my female and non-binary peers have had shockingly similar experiences to mine. So much so that making a Facebook group to simply feel safe from unwanted harassment in local studios became necessary. Furthermore, we then launched Gear Fanatics, an alternative to Gear Sluts, to highlight underrepresented voices in audio through demos, reviews, and interviews, with the full support of Meg Lee Chin, the co-founder of Gear Sluts, whose work for the site and forum were stolen from her before she was ostracized from the group at large. Representation is imperative to inspire the next generation of engineers from all backgrounds and genders. We cannot be what we cannot see. So why can't we ask more women to speak if it isn't hard to find us? And I'd like to share my screen quickly and sound. Can you see? Thumbs up, anybody?
Yes, we can.
Yep.
Cool, thank you. So this video went around Facebook and was being shared by a lot of people in the different audio groups. It's why aren't there more female producers? And we're gonna see a little bit about why.
It's so unusual to see a woman killing it in music that we're likely to think that it's fake or doctored or that a man did it for her, as if something's wrong with this picture. Now, of course, stereotyping men this way sounds kind of condescending, and some of us are genuinely impressed. Some of us actually see a potential sex partner taking interest in a hobby that we have a whole lot of knowledge in. Hey, that's pretty convenient. Maybe if I give her some unsolicited advice, it'll open that line of communication while making me seem like a valuable person to have in her life. And then I could offer to collaborate with her and we could... Negging is an act of emotional manipulation whereby a person makes a deliberate, backhanded compliment or otherwise flirtatious remark to another person to undermine their confidence and increase their need of the manipulator's approval. That sounds pretty evil and intense, and it is. But it's also rampant and therefore normalized. Let's say that you're a big fan of my music or a big fan of this channel and you make a song that you're really proud of, and I listen to it and I say, "This is so good. This is rad. Oh, nice. Dude, actually, if you ever need to learn some better chords, let me see if I have it somewhere around here. Oh, there it is. I could lend you this book. It's just some chords. I don't have a use for it anymore, so it's all yours." Your first thought is likely not going to be how generous I am with my chord books. It's more likely to be you wondering what the hell is wrong with your chords. Believe it or not, I am actually a marginally famous public figure, so I do get my discourse and trolling, usually in the style of kill yourself or your face looks like diarrhea, but I don't get that much specific criticism on my music or my channel. Almost a year ago, one person commented saying that the backgrounds of my videos hurt his eyes. And that comment stuck around in my head while I was doing the next couple videos and eventually led to me buying a curtain rod, a new curtain, and changing my lighting setup a bit. And I believe that this was constructive criticism. Yay. I've been playing the guitar my entire life and I am pretty damn good at it. Sarah Longfield is an innovative, phenomenal, world-class guitar player. Way better than I am, yet somehow in my entire career, nobody has ever given me unsolicited constructive criticism on my guitar playing.
Like one of the things that I've always felt like, uploading videos for everybody in the world to see is like, I feel really discouraged sometimes by the negative feedback. It's the one comment that always just bores into your skull. And it's just like, it feels so, so bad.
Yeah.
And that's from somebody who is not Black and is not a woman. So I can't imagine the force multipliers going up and up and up from that one comment. And just that environment, I feel like it's just discouraging for people.
Sarah Longfield, like
Yeah.
I did a collaboration video with her and looking at my comments being like, "You're a boss, blah, blah, blah." And then looking at her comments and be like, "You're a very beautiful woman. Let me tell you about how to do this right. In this one part, your microphone was the wrong way." And I was just like, oh my God, this is so awful. Like, how could you upload any videos? If I were her, I couldn't do it.
Anytime that a woman is on my channel, I warn them like, hey, you know that there's going to be some bullshit in the comments, right? And most of them are like, yeah, I know. I'm a woman.
Yeah.
I've been on the internet before.
I'm at a point where like I don't usually read my comments.
So that's, of course, just a little bit of this video, but I think that it's representative of a lot of our experiences in audio and in music. And so I would just invite some thoughts and some questions at the end about what everyone's takeaway is from this. So with that, I would like to hand it over to Lillian.
Should I end it? Actually,
Do you want to end it? Okay,
Yeah.
sure. So Ryan, do you want to talk, or do you want Johnny to talk first? Where's Johnny?
I don't know if
Johnny,
is Johnny ready?
would you like to say just a few things about your experience in audio this far?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
There she is. Okay.
All right. I mean, I'm definitely really new to all this for sure. I'm definitely new to the experiences, but I will say that my first experience ever, you really, when it comes to going in the studio or just recording, and you want that to be a really, really special moment, and you really plan for it and you hope for it, and um, that time came around for me, I guess, my first time around, and it was awful. It was not a good feeling. Um, but it's also, I work in a very male dominated industry as far as work and all the work that I have done, for most of my life. So I feel very used to it. I know that sounds really sad, but it's true. I'm very used to um being looked at differently, like as a woman, but also, even being a musician myself. It's been rough. It I don't really know what else to say. But yeah, that video was really hits home quite a bit, I'd have to say, and I think that rings true for a lot of people. So, like Angie said, I think it was very, very representative of what issues that we're dealing with today. Yeah, I don't know. What are you guys' thoughts?
Right.
I would say for me, same as Johnny, my getting into audio engineering after experiences that we had as Atrocity Girl has definitely been the toughest. But even mostly that I do performing of live music is where I've got my most experiences of being told after shows that it's never it always has to be met with like, wow, I didn't know a woman could play like that, or like even if it's a compliment, versus whereas I walk in with my bandmates. Before I met these ladies, I was in a band with other men, and even as the front woman for those bands, I would walk in immediately. The owners of the venues, or whoever the bookers are, or whoever happens to be in the bar at that moment, goes directly up to them, ask them what the plan is, ask them, what's going on, what band is this, and I'll be like, actually, I lead this band. I'm going to be the singer tonight, and I would like this to happen. I need this, and I would start saying these things. It would be met with everyone being very surprised, and just sometimes I would be met with just like, I don't want to say like suspicion, but just skepticism, and just like, or just really, just it made me feel very surprised. Like, oh, this is, oh, it's going to be one of those nights. Okay, this is cool, and I'm like, okay, appreciate that. But yeah, it's I guess it was just another upsetting moment for me to go into audio engineering, to see that that doesn't change performing, versus having music and having love for music, even translated into wanting to record it, wanting to produce it, just wanting to learn more things, and as Johnny said, to be excited about it, but then being told like, well, like, yeah, there's going to be a couple things you need to know. Let me show you how this works. All the way down to where we start talking about like my looks, or it's like, I don't know, are you sure this is right for you, or do you sure you don't want to just be at home, and like, there's other people that can probably do this better. And even to the things that Angie said about being in classes and being told that like, no, there's plenty of women. I don't know what this means, or being told that as a woman you're never going to make it, or the way that I felt walking into a venue. I was like, will I ever have the opportunity to walk into a venue and someone says, I know her, she's awesome, and there's no question like about my ability, or the way there's no words about the way I look, or it just, nothing can ever revolve around just music and the notion of it has to be, there has to be something tied to it.
And that brings up, when we posted as Atrocity Girl that we were taking things into our own hands, and Johnny came in and built the stage for the drums, and we set up everything. The comments we got were so discouraging. Well, the comments from women were amazing.
Yes.
And supportive. Yes. The comments from men were, wow, you really shouldn't do that. You need to go to a studio. You need this equipment, or it's going to sound terrible. And I mean, a long list.
Even I think Angie,
Yeah.
I think, I mean, as we're just starting this journey, so I think it went without saying that we don't have a lot of gear to start with, but we had this immense passion and excitement to work with what we have, knowing that we will build, as happens regardless of who you are. It builds. You just get better, you learn more, you discover better things. But even posting the simple picture that she had of the soundproofing that we had put on the wall, and she took also a picture of just the kit where it was and the couple of mics that we had. Immediately, like, the men were so quick to just say, I'm gonna actually stop you and tell you what's wrong with this picture. And it started from right there, and we were just like, okay, well, do we need to tell you why we started doing this, or without even asking? I guess I should say that we didn't. It's not our responsibility to have to explain why we took on this endeavor, even if there was a reason or if there wasn't. It could have been truly just the fact that I've been playing live music I've been playing guitar for almost about 20 years now. I've been performing out live for about 7. And I don't even need to think about that. But as far as just with audio engineering, just being met with that, I'm like, are you kidding? Are you kidding?
It was discouraging.
Yes.
And I feel, to Ryan's point too about performing, 2020, or I guess the end of 2019, that was the first time that I had actually even met a female engineer. And it took me a minute to realize how long I had been performing on stage and in venues. And it took seeing a woman as the live sound engineer for me to think, oh, this is the first time I'm seeing that. That's actually something that can happen. That's something we can do. And it clicked in that moment. And it was amazing, but it was also kind of sad because I realized I never gave it a second thought, just the sound guy. Who's the sound guy? And I've had instances where I would be setting up drums and the sound guy would come up at one particular venue and asked me if I, knew how to set up my drums and where, did I know that the mics would need to go in the certain places, and that happens, and it's something you kind of you learn to brush off because it happens so frequently. But I think that's really what we're trying to address tonight, and specifically in the Pacific Northwest, because that's where we're having these experiences. How can we kind of tackle these questions and these experiences right now?
I think another thing I also would like to point out is that as far as getting into the audio mission and engineering, the way that the experiences that we went through as musicians into a studio versus now we have this home studio and we're going to record, is that we went to a studio in the Seattle area, and we were trying to portray to the engineer at the moment about the sounds that we were looking for, and at one point he turns and says, he's like, well, everything I'm doing is perfect, but maybe if she can learn to play her instrument better, then that would really help, because that's pretty much what the problem is basically what he said in a nutshell. But being translated over to learning audio engineering, where I don't want to have to be met with, the reasons that we started the women's audio group is that to be met with those kind of comments, even as a performer, being like, I know how to play my instrument, but how can someone who's been playing their instrument for over 20 years, or about 20 years, take on a new, just want to take on a new role within the music industry, but be met with the same experience,
kind of,
like it's just resistance and just very skepticism, and be like, I can't have any confidence being like, tell me more about this mic. You're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna tell you about this mic because I want you to know how this works, because I was like, just because you're learning isn't an opportunity to be told what you should, how things work, or how things work, or the way I should do it. I mean,
especially we were on a budget, obviously.
Yes.
We're doing things at home, and so instead of advice, even in my first quarter classes, or when we went into a separate studio, really things saying like, oh, that mic just won't work, you just need more money, instead of any kind of workaround, help, basically. And I think that's where AES, especially in an educational sense, can kind of steer the conversation for the specific community in well, okay, you don't have $1,000. You have this. Okay, that's a great start. You're interested in audio. Let's figure out what you can do.
Yes.
And I think that for me, I haven't come across, and it's been almost a year now, I haven't come across that conversation personally in the audio field here in Seattle. And I think that's kind of where we're coming from.
Yeah, and that's a good point. That's what I think. What I wanted to get to the tip of the conversation was that as far as what AES can do is just like the flood of encouragement and support that we got from women when we made the post that we were going to build a home studio. It's just one of the things that is not represented coming from men, as far as just even if something isn't going the way, or we don't have the gear, or anything like that, is just coming from a place of encouragement, coming from a place of, well, everyone needs to learn. This is all new. No one ever came into a skill saying, I already know everything about this skill and I'm going to learn it. That's obviously not how we learn.
But there are differences. My friend Jam, we were talking about how we get different responses, and she's been making email accounts, fake email accounts, and emailing mixed engineers with a masculine name, and then the idea was, okay, I'll email with my name and see what the responses are, and it's really telling the difference in response, the difference in reply. And I think that's something.
I will actually say that that's one thing that I don't have with audio engineering, but I do have experience with booking live shows, as my name is Ryan. I will email venue owners, and I will get hits back for shows. But when I show up, it's very much a surprise. It's always met with me. It's never, oh, you're the band that's playing tonight. I was like, oh, are you? You're Ryan. I'm like, yes, hi, I'm Ryan. It's always met with a surprise. So yeah, I can definitely see that as a...
Yeah, and I think just, to end is really, or before we pass it to Lillian, these, of course, the D&I Committee, and it's fantastic work that's being done. And I think focusing, especially within the Pnw section, as far as representation across the board, but also really looking at, okay, well, what is that representing? The community. What does the community do? What does the community look like right now as far as audio? And this is what it looks like. This is how the experience feels. And so I think if Lillian's ready, we can pass it to her before questions.
Yes. Thank you for listening for us as well.
Well, hello everyone. I'm Lillian, and I wrote a thing. So now I'm going to go and I'm going to read my thing. Scroll all the way up. Okay. The lack of women in audio is a self-perpetuating problem. Wait, where am I in my part? Here we go. Hello all. My name is Lillian Blair. I'm a producer and engineer in the Seattle area. I got my start at Shoreline's audio program before interning at London Bridge, and then working at the Vera Project as our studio engineer, audio committee chair, and audio educator, teaching studio recording and mixing and mastering. I've had the opportunity to work with several local artists, including Naked Giants, Jason McHugh, and Left at London, as well as the producer for Mopop's Sound Off Studio Prize. I'm proud to be part of the 5%-ish of producers and engineers who are women, but that is still a distressingly low level of representation and something that each of us should seek to address. Gender disparity in the audio industry is not something that's going to be fixed overnight. It's an issue that stretches back to the very genesis of audio and will take a massive cultural shift, both within the industry and within the culture at large, to not only ensure that there is an accessible and welcoming industry ready for women to enter, but also a culture that presents audio as a viable and gender-appropriate career choice for young girls to aspire to work in. This is a generational problem and is going to take decades of work before we see significant progress towards an equal gender representation. Thankfully, there are several direct, fun, and not overly complicated methods that each of us can do to tackle the problem, to not only increase representation immediately, but also create a more welcoming and respectful industry and work towards building interest and creating an ever-increasing number of girls eager to get into audio. So let's start with the fun one, which is also the one that's going to take the most time to actually create results: inspiring young girls. This is your opportunity to embrace your love of audio and to share that love with the next generation of engineers. What is it about audio that initially drew you in? What keeps you motivated to continue turning knobs and pushing faders and diving into the cutting edge of what our industry is about to become? If you have children of your own, how are you sharing this joy with them? What are you doing to prepare them for a career in audio, if that is the path which they choose to take? Audio is fun, and naturally anything fun is worth turning into a career. This is the seed we'll be planting in the minds of the next generation. In order to plant this seed, you need to be able to present the joy and the possibility to the girls whom you wish to inspire. The best way to do this is to reach out to youth groups and to schools and set up age-appropriate demonstrations. The group's coordinator and leaders can help you tailor your work to the age group. Maybe elementary school kids get to record funny sounds and mess around with them to make even funnier sounds. Middle schoolers can make beats in a cheap and easy DAW. High schoolers can be shown how to record and edit a podcast. All age groups can be taken on field trips to see studios and sound stages and venues and wherever else audio work takes place. While you should specifically reach out to girl-centric groups, i.e. the Girl Scouts, you're very likely going to be presenting to both girls and boys. In this case, it is imperative that you actively engage the girls attending the demonstration and do so at a much higher rate than the boys. In fact, only actively engage the girls and let the boys engage themselves. Why is this? Well, aside from the goal of this work being inspiring and thus increasing the representation of girls in the industry, you're also fighting against years to decades of gender-biased socialization. While I'm sure things are much better than when I was a kid, society is still structured in a way that encourages boys to stand out and be seen and to take action while encouraging girls to sit back and be passive and let boys be the one to actively engage. While passively observing and interacting with a presentation may inspire people, I'm sure we all know that nothing beats actually getting your hands on some equipment and doing something with it. I've had the opportunity to allow many girls to get their hands on audio equipment, and the sheer joy they expressed when first turning a knob on an EQ, feeling the tactile response and hearing the changes they're making, that's what gets people hooked. Accompanying the presentation, you must provide detailed yet easy to follow and accessible ways to continue to pursue audio. While this may include information on audio programs in the area, in particular for high school students, this should also include resources for continuing to pursue audio on their own. Books and links are okay, though not actually going to be read by most people. Free or low-cost software and equipment are best, as the cost barrier to entry for audio, while dropping, is still going to exclude a lot of people still experimenting and deciding if this is the direction they want to go. Remember, what seems a reasonable expense to those of us in the industry could very well be unattainable to students from lower income families. I'm looking at you, Ableton. Gear donation drives, such as those held by the Vera Project, are a good way to get cheap equipment to those who need a helping hand in getting their start. By presenting different areas of audio in age-appropriate ways, while actively engaging and encouraging girls in particular, this will increase the interest of girls in pursuing audio and cause an influx of new workers over the next couple decades. We will need to be prepared for them to help them build careers, as it is very difficult to get anywhere in this industry without mentorship, training, and guidance. By actively seeking out girls to mentor, you are taking an active step in opening up the potential for a career to those who have already chosen to pursue it and taking direct action to address the gender disparity. It is important that you actively seek out girls to mentor, because society still favors boys when it comes to technological socialization, because audio is one of those careers not often publicly glamorized. The number of girls trying to build a career at the moment is very small, larger than the actual statistics will have us believe, but nowhere near where it needs to be. Even at the Vera Project, which has a reputation for excellent female engineers, we do not have that many girls going through our programs. Because of this, we take extra care to ensure they get the mentorship and support they need in order to keep pushing to build their careers. This industry can be hostile to women, and that hostility can lead many to leave before they're able to build their career. So making sure that they have a strong support network from the beginning will help them push through the difficulties both of audio in general and specifically facing women to be able to establish themselves. If you are having trouble finding girls to mentor, that is understandable. Until the aforementioned inspiration takes hold, women are still going to be drastically underrepresented in all areas of audio, including those trying to get into the industry. Reach out to different audio programs in the area. In Seattle, for example, Shoreline, the University of Washington, Vera Project, and Grammy U, and ask to be put in touch with any girls who display an aptitude for audio and a dedicated work ethic. When you have the contact info of a prospective mentee, reach out to her. Introduce yourself, tell her what you do. Humble brag is fine, just don't go too overboard with it, and ask if she'd be interested in talking more about an audio career. If she says yes, then set up a meeting. Over Zoom, seeing as how there's still a pandemic, or over coffee once we're finally able to get back to normal. When you meet, make sure to ask her about her career path and plans to get there. Make sure to listen and figure out how your own story can relate to hers. When it is your time to talk, share your career story. Everyone's story is unique. That's one of the best and most challenging parts of audio. Hearing your story, in particular the bits you were inspired to tell based on hers, will help her figure out the next steps she should take towards building her career. Do not give unsolicited advice that can be off-putting and often isn't as applicable as you think it is. She will ask for advice if she needs it. Simply hearing your story is likely to be better than any direct advice you can give. Now, once you've met your mentee and gotten to know each other, and you've decided that both decided that pursuing a mentorship is a good direction to take, then it is time to start mentoring. The first step is to show her around the work that you do. Whether it's a studio or an office, give her a sense for the day-to-day of your job. If you do most of your work at home, it's best to do this over Zoom. Given the realities of the previous paragraphs, it will take a while before it is appropriate to invite your mentee to your home. Once she has a sense for what you do, if possible, give her some work to practice on. Not actual work you'd use for deliverables unless it's on spec. Just something to let her experience the type of work she's looking into. Think of this as training. When she displays aptitude, provided she still wants to continue with this type of work, then it is time to give her some actual work. Most important of all, when it comes to giving work to your mentee, pay her. Yes, everybody did the unpaid internship. I did the unpaid internship. It was the most life-changing experience of my career. I'd gone to school, sure, but it was my internship that taught me how to do the work professionally. I got so much more out of it than the free labor I put in, and I still should have gotten paid. Interns do a lot of work that generates value. From my own experience, I set up and tore down sessions, which is assistant engineer work. I made coffee and picked up food, which is runner work. I spent a large portion of my time greeting artists, making them feel comfortable, making them feel cool, and creating a fun and creatively conductive environment for them to work in. All of this generates value. And if you're producing value for someone or for an organization, you should be compensated in something more than the nebulous experience, like album credits. State laws are addressing this, so it is up to the industry to figure out how to work in the new system. We are not going to see a rise in representation if the old way of doing things, with its barriers, only people who can afford to work for free can work for free, is either the only way or goes away completely due to new legal restrictions. If you really can't pay cash, and for the record, I pay in cash, then find some other form of compensation. A studio, for example, could compensate in studio time. Whatever it is, it should be defined and agreed upon before the work commences. Finally, when it comes to your mentee, your work isn't over after you've given her some experience doing your job. Your goal, after all, is to build a lifelong friendship and working relationships. It's through these that everyone in the industry thrives, and you have a unique opportunity to help someone become the type of worker that you want to work with. If your mentorship has gone as far as it can go, help set her up with another mentorship. Everyone in the industry has multiple people they can point to without whom they would not have a career. I've had several people help guide me, and without whom I can confidently say I would not be here speaking with you today. People like Jonathan Plum, Eric Lillavois, and Jeff Ott from London Bridge. People like Dave Gross and Andrew Jocelyn and Sue Ennis. They've been kind and compassionate, lending their time to help me navigate this business and build a career, with each helping me move forward and find the next person and the next opportunity. That networking is a vital part of helping to build up your mentee. Career development opportunities, work opportunities, everything you can think of that will give her a leg up as she works her way through the industry. You will need to do multiples of these. Sometimes an opportunity or a person doesn't fit. This may be you and your mentee, in which case send her off to someone else and find someone new to mentor. This may be a connection you present her with, in which case open up your contacts and see who else might fit. Your job as a mentor is to help cultivate and grow a career. This is a multi-year process, yet one that will inevitably be both personally and financially rewarding if you see it through. I will note here that while getting coffee with someone is one of the best ways to meet, talk, and get to know each other, because of that, it is also an excellent way to start a romantic or sexual relationship. No matter what your intentions may be, women are constantly on guard for things turning in that direction. It is an unfortunate aspect of the reality of being a woman. Even enough men seek to turn situations sexual that it puts a pall over all interactions with men until trust has been built. And the music industry in particular has a nasty reputation for men using their power and influence to coerce or even force sexual encounters. Because of this, it is important that you, as people with power in the industry, are intentional about not creating any kind of sexual aspects in your interactions and, hopefully, friendship and working relationships. This is easier than you think. First, do not say anything sexual. Do not comment on her looks. This is a work meeting, and while you may be the one who initially has the power in the situation, the ultimate goal is for things to be mutually beneficial. So treat it like you would any other work meeting. A major problem for women in the audio industry comes with how we are treated by the men who make up the vast majority of people in the industry. This is not unsurprising. If there are so few women, then men are not used to working with women and thus do not know how to interact with women in a professional setting. Barring friendships, a large number of extended interactions with men for men in the industry are in a romantic or sexual context. In an industry as sexually charged as the music industry is, it is easy then to continue to view these interactions in a sexual light, even subconsciously. Even if no action is taken, and even if it is an automatic response, viewing women initially and primarily in a sexual context is a sexist expression and is the kind of thing that takes a lot of personal examination and work to overcome. Simply saying that's how men are is no longer acceptable. It perpetuates sexist interactions and is a barrier in treating women as professional and social equals while refusing to take responsibility for one's own thoughts and actions. It also frames women's actions in a sexual context. I can tell you from personal experience, my expressions of professional admiration have been taken as sexual interest to the detriment of personal and professional relationships. Again, this is an example of ingrained sexism and is something that needs to be acknowledged, processed, and worked to overcome. Ingrained sexism is not your fault. It is the result of views taught to everyone by a sexist society. However, it is your responsibility to do the personal work to overcome these prejudices and work towards making a more equal and respectful society. This viewing of women first in a sexual context is actively damaging to women's careers and contributes to the lack of representation in the audio industry. When there's a power disparity, such as a man hiring a woman to work on a project, any sexual joke or advancement places the woman in a very uncomfortable and ultimately damaging position. Humor or return the sexual comments or interest, signaling a desire for those to continue and possibly leading to unsafe situations, or risk losing the gig by not returning those unwanted sexual advancements. While this type of gig is not the type that one would want to do anyway, it can create a domino effect that prevents careers from growing. Not only is it a lost gig, resulting in lost money and lost credits, but it also leads to lost networking and potentially even a loss of future gigs as word spreads of her not working out or not being agreeable, conveniently leaving out the fact that the reason was sexual in nature. Of course, if a woman humors the sexual advances in order to secure and complete the gig, that also has an equal number of negative outcomes. Aside from the fact that it is still immoral on the man's part to put her in that situation, it will build for her a reputation not as a good worker, but as someone trying to sleep her way into a career. When I asked several high-profile and successful female producers and engineers what their advice for me was as a female producer and engineer getting into the industry, it was universally this: Be mindful of my appearance so as not to give off the impression that I am trying to sleep my way into a career. This is a reputation that I can control to some degree by my actions. I do not date in the industry at all, to the point of passing on entering into relationships where there's a genuine connection because of it. However, a comment on my looks or how I present myself, or anger over unreturned sexual advances can snowball into a nasty reputation that can derail a career. How a woman dresses and presents herself is also an unwinnable situation. I cannot tell you how many times men in bands have walked away from a conversation with me when they realize that I'm not going to sleep with them. No amount of musical interest or professional clout can overcome that initial disappointment, nor can I control for their thoughts and perceptions. Every person is different, so there's no universal way that I can present myself that will cause men to take me seriously in a professional context, but not view me in a sexual one. Nor is it my responsibility to control the views and actions of the men with whom I interact. The music industry is very sexual, and while we all should be working towards increasing professionalism and comfort, we're not going to remove that sexual nature completely, nor should we. It's part of the fun. We just need to make sure it's done in a work and socially appropriate manner. So, looking good for social media posts? Good. Adding sexual undertones into professional interactions? Bad. Overly sexual comments, jokes, and terminology? Also bad. Multiple times, I've had men, including successful and powerful men, tell me about a particularly vulgar bit of studio terminology, completely apropos of nothing, not as a segue in a conversation, not because I asked, just because they wanted to. This is an example of the aforementioned no-win situation. If I stand up and say that that is inappropriate, then I risk damaging my career. If I keep quiet, as I did, then it is signaling that I am okay with that and that it is okay to continue with such comments, both to me and to others. Obviously, none of that is okay, and yes, that is sexual harassment. It is exerting power and dominance, reminding me that the industry as a whole views me and women like me as body parts for the amusement and pleasure of the men who are the ones who actually deserve to be in this business. I was sexually harassed by a powerful man in an organization that I am involved with, in the exact same manner as I just reported another organization member for sexually harassing me. I can only speculate as to his motivations. Did he think that his power shielded him from repercussions? Did he think that I wouldn't be believed if I reported him because of my previous report? Again, I didn't say anything or report him for both of those reasons. His power may very well have shielded him. I very well could have developed a reputation for overreacting and making things up to try and go after people I didn't like. Or I could have caused sexual rumors to spread about me in the organization because of my frequent reporting. Even saying something to his face was not an option. If he was willing to say this, then he'd be willing to do other things to damage my reputation and ability to work within the organization. I had to weigh all of this and decide whether to say something to him in that half second between him saying it, waiting to see if I'd react, and then walking away. This is why it is so difficult to shut these things down in the moment. There's an initial shock of it happening, then determining what the best course of action is, weighing potential consequences and the power disparity, and doing all that in less than a second. And if we simply deferred to our initial emotional reaction and met harassment with anger, that can and often is damaging to us as well. Instead of the victim, we are an overreacting psycho bitch and not to be taken seriously. Should I have stood up for myself and shut these situations down? In retrospective, yes. But it is also understandable, especially given the power disparity and how that could negatively affect my career, that I chose silence. This is the reality of the majority of women experience when presented with these situations. This is why you need to be constantly vigilant that, whether intentionally or not, you do not inject sexually uncomfortable situations and certainly not expectations into your interactions with women in the industry. Not only are these situations morally abhorrent, but they also are absolutely terrible to go through and are the type of situations that make women feel like the industry is unwelcoming, unsafe, and not the type of place they wish to be a part of. So, well, the two previously mentioned actions, reaching out and inspiring the youth, and mentoring new entrants into the industry are multi-year processes that will take time to produce results, there is one thing that everyone can do right now, today, to increase the representation of women in the industry. Are you ready? Hire more women. There are thousands of amazing, talented, driven women already working in the industry with established careers and extensive portfolios. By seeking them out, you will be able to further their careers and make sure that more women grow to being the shining examples that show your mentees and the young girls you seek to inspire that they too can have a successful career in audio. Yes, given the massive gender disparity, it can be difficult to find qualified women. However, nothing worth doing is ever easy, and if you truly seek to address the gender disparity in audio, which you should, you need to put in the work. Thankfully, there are plenty of resources available online to help you find female audio professionals. The Make It Equal directory is a wonderful one, Women's Audio Mission, Sound Girls, and many more, just a Google search away. Don't just go for the handful of established women either. Our goal is to increase representation of women overall, which means that more women need more work. Cast a wide net, and you will find many women striving to be seen. What initially may start as a working relationship may turn into a mentorship and may turn into a lifelong working collaboration and friendship. We want a more equitable and more representative industry. That doesn't come simply from having more women working in the industry. That's where it starts. We want women to be welcomed, to have a voice, to have success, and to have power. Women offer unique experiences and perspectives that can enhance the industry for everyone. And it is time that we take the action necessary to bring in more voices, remove cultural barriers, and create an industry in which we all can thrive. So, thank you.
Yay!
Angie, if you're saying anything, I can't hear you.
Oh, I just said yay and clapped. Let's see.
All right, so I'm just going to go back and read all of the comments.
That was really well said, by the way.
Thank you.
That was awesome.
There we are. Okay.
Thank you so much, Lillian.
Thank you,
for
Lillian.
really outlining, I feel like, with all of your experience in the industry, it really speaks to the experiences that we've been having in only a year of being on this side of engineering. And it just really resonated with every point.
I think so. I think a lot of the points that that Lillian has made over her experience are things that, as new engineers upcoming and learning, are things that we have dealt with right off the bat, and it's very
it can be discouraging.
It's discouraging. It definitely strikes an insecure note in me, where we're to the point where it just all comes up to the point where I was like, why can't we find women? And I'm like, it's.
And yeah. to the point also of teachers, you know, I've had to actually seek out female teachers and teachers of color, and I've been taking classes, and we've been taking classes outside of the program to get other perspectives and a safe space for learning mixing. And I think that that's an important note, that when there is no representation, you do have to seek it out in another way. But I do think, you know, I am paying for the program, but I am also having to seek out other voices to feel heard and seen.
But I do think that overall, the support to encouraging young women to feel safe, to enroll in these programs, to become part of auto engineering, to become part of AES, and to not have to feel discouraged about being a woman or being a woman of color or being and just having the opportunity to feel safe is the first step in answering the question of why aren't there more women in the program? Why is there a lack of diversity? And just targeting where it stems from.
Exactly, because when you go, especially to these groups like Sound Girls or women in audio, it's so much fun. It's so encouraging. There are women from all over the world, non-binary engineers and engineers of color, and we're always in discussion. We're always messaging, and I feel like that's so exciting, and I would love to see more of that excitement at large.
Yes.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think everything you said really resonated a lot, Lillian. I think that was really well put. It was really beautiful. I love the way you word things too, by the way. And I really love what's happening here because you made a really good point. It's really just about generations before us. This has been so ingrained in the culture. Since our parents before their parents, and it's the world is changing so much though, and although it seems messy, it's this is a part of that change because I feel like the behavior that we've all experienced, all the negative behavior that we experienced from men, doesn't matter if you're in audio, but from any kind of line of work or just life in general, it's just become so normal to be looked at almost like in a way where, gosh, I'm not really sure where I'm trying to word this like the best way I can. I guess it's just become so normal to try to be a certain way, to live up to a certain standard, and if you're anything less than that, being like a woman or how a woman should be, then you're not really a woman, and it's just weird. Like, I've always encouraged women and girls and just anybody I come across to really just always be your genuine self. You don't need to be or try to act in any kind of anyone's image except for your own. And like that's yeah, I don't know. But I think that the change starts right now, like with what we're doing and
I did too.
just being here. That's where it begins. So
And I would say also, I'd like to put in that support goes a long way because just it makes me nervous being in the audio field, knowing that so many of these things from, I was saying that my performance experience has translated already into my audio journey, is that just letting women know that there won't be those problems, that you can just like being told like, oh, like you can play guitar, or like or like all the questions you have to deal with and all the obstacles.
Good for a girl.
Yeah, good for a girl, or just being like, oh, or that comment I think that I think in the chat here I saw from Rachel that said that, oh, if you're not fun, then why are you here? Or I have to be like, I'm one of the boys. Just having to deal with the stigma of like oh, like are you gonna be like too much, or can you hang, or can you just be simple? Like I don't want to make this a whole thing. And I'm like, no one ever said it was a thing. It's just I just want to learn.
And Lillian makes a lot of good points about how things can be addressed, but it's true. We've, especially as a band, we have had to think, okay, what are we wearing? How are we acting? What are we doing? What's my body language? And all of the challenges that have come with recording at home and mixing and becoming, engineers on this side were a direct result and a silver lining, of course, for doing this on our own and falling in love with audio, but it was a result of those experiences that we had.
Yeah, I think it was a two-sided love. That moment that all of Atrocity Girl, we were sitting in our practice space together and we were smiling, so like we were so happy, like just thinking about the idea of engineering ourselves. And but that excitement, I love that we wanted to record ourselves, and we are really passionate about this audio mission. But I think it's sad that our first thought being like, I think we should record ourselves, had to be because we don't have to deal with this. Like, we don't have to be treated like this. We were like we were excited to learn all these things, but I think we just had a moment of sadness where I was just like, I just don't like that that one of the main reasons that we we're in the band room being like, I think it is a good idea to record ourselves because I think we can just get so much more done. I think that we can move faster. I think we can just all feel more
Safe.
empowered and safe.
And you know what?
by
You
ourselves.
want to know? You want to know something? Is the more people would say that we couldn't do it, the more we were doing it. Like, it was insane. Like, it was crazy reading all the comments. Like, every single one that was negative, which there were definitely more negative ones than there were positive ones, but they were all from men. They were. I mean, there were actually legitimately people out there who wanted to see us fail.
Yeah.
Like, who just wanted to see us fail. But it just made us want to do it that much more.
There was a studio owner who posted a picture of Johnny here at the in the control room on his studio Facebook.
Oh yeah.
And the line, was making fun of us. Oh, this is where this is what happens if
when you try to become an engineer and you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah. I mean, and just publicly making fun of us. And obviously we left for reasons of harassment anyway. So that's, and I definitely am glad to be where we are, and just mixing is the most fun.
But these are nightmares. These
life.
I feel like these are nightmares as a new woman on the audio mission these are nightmares I hope that I never have to see young women go through. It hurts my soul that there's not that kind of support out there for even, I feel like I'm new, but even to have
someone younger
than me, even because I can't, like, I have been playing live music for a long time, but I can't even imagine how I would have approached this had I been 20, 22, 23, 10 years ago. I can't imagine how I would have dealt with it. I don't know if I would have. I don't know if I would have quit. I can't say I honestly know.
Unable to get away in a car. I mean, these are things that we think about.
So, yes, very important to offer those support and those just be encouraging and that safety.
Hey, Greg.
Hey, I didn't want to interrupt, but
Nope.
I did want to see, well, first off, thank you so much for sharing, everyone, your thoughts and experiences with us. And I know that it's not easy to do so. And well, I actually don't know, but I appreciate all of you coming here and speaking with us and sharing with us.
Of course, thank you.
Thank you.
Do you think that now might be a good time for us to move into the Q&A?
Yes, that'd be great.
Okay. So I know that Lillian was looking over the chat, and I don't know if there were any questions that came up or that
None specific, but I guess since we are opening it up now, if anyone has any questions or clarifications or comments based on the presentations, please type them into the chat, and we'll do our best to answer.
Yes.
Yeah. Greg, did you have anything? Any questions? Or any need for clarification on anything, like based on you?
No, I think I think more so I'm struck by honestly a kind of sadness, thinking about just all of the things that you each have had to deal with. It's kind of hard to take it all in, and I think maybe just on a personal note, and maybe this could be a jumping off point of something to talk about, that one thing that I've been struck with is that in a kind of selfish way, I love music and I love sound, and it's something that I'm really passionate about. And I've always felt that if we can't bring a diverse group of people into this art form, then we're really doing it a disservice, that we really haven't. I have this feeling that we haven't yet really seen how how amazing and beautiful music can be, because it has been a field where where there's a serious lack of diversity. And I just want to say that I think that doing meetings like this and talking about these kinds of things is really important, because I think the more diversity that we can have in our field, the greater good that that's going to be for the art form. So I want to thank each of you for coming here and talking about this.
Mhm.
Thank you.
It looks like we have a question to Angie, Ryan, and Johnny. Did you try to find a female engineer to work with before deciding to do it yourselves?
Yes, Lillian.
Mhm.
Lillian, I mean, is our mentor and absolutely helped mixing the first single, which was amazing. But our first 5 experiences in studios were so awful that that's when we decided that we wanted to try to do it ourselves. We had been through so much at that point with harassment that we needed to try to do this ourselves.
Well, and to take the power for you.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, like I was working with you on that attempt for working with one of those studios, and that
Yes.
definitely was not an enjoyable situation. The studio owner tried to take credit for the work that I was doing on the project,
Yes.
and then fired me from the project when I talked to him about that, despite it being the band that hired me for it. So
Yes.
yeah, we did. I did end up mixing their first single, which came out not too long ago. Then Angie took my mixing class, and we did a day of sort of consulting, just so I came over and looked at their studio setup, helped them out with mic placement a little bit, and showed some how to use Pro Tools. But then they just really went for it themselves, which is absolutely wonderful. I mean, there's so much joy that can be had in making music and doing it for yourself and just hearing it come together. And like, as much as I love being there with bands and helping them along that process, it's equally wonderful to see them discovering that for themselves.
Yes.
So I cannot wait to hear what you guys have come up with. It's and as far as like the comments about, oh, it's going to sound terrible, this isn't how to do it right, it's no, I listened to the raw tracks that you sent me for that first song, and it sounded amazing for having done it in a home studio.
Yeah.
So it's you really can go a long way just taking the extra time to make sure you know what the proper way to do something is, and that you adjust things to make sure that it's at your liking.
I love that, and thank you so much. And I should add too that when we were having these experiences, it was at the beginning of COVID.
Mhm.
So even being able to go out to a studio with Lillian became impossible. So that's
Right, that was the initial plan, and then Vera
Yeah.
closed down.
exactly.
Yes.
But after we really decided to try to do this, and the control room is the bedroom, and the studio is down the hall, and we, I think, only sought out female engineers for help after that. And Rachel Field, another amazing mentor, also came to look at the setup, and we really tried to immerse ourselves in everything, so to not just go through it blindly, but really understand what we were doing and set up things correctly, and had amazing gear that we were able to borrow to try to do this, also from our women friends. So just that was incredible.
I think a lot of the support that we were given was also because, or wasn't because of, but it was just it was an eagerness to help after hearing our experiences, because it was like This is so terrible. I don't understand why you ladies have to go through this, especially trying to take on this new endeavor. And I think that's why everyone was so eager to help. I really appreciate.
And Rachel
Yeah.
mastered as well. So just throw that in.
Yes.
True.
So and now we're taking the rest of the album. We've recorded all of the tracks. We're mixing right now, and it's just it's incredible.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome. I always love telling this story, man. It's like one of my favorites. But it brings me back to when we first started the journey, and we were all sitting in the cave, and we were just talking about how fed up we were with all the experiences that we were having with, trying to get into other studios and just feeling very discouraged and very intimidated. And I remember just looking at the girls. I was like, you know what? I was like, why can't we can do this ourselves? And there for a moment, like there was a hesitation, I think, between Ryan and I don't know, there was just some hesitation there. Like it seemed very intimidating, but it actually ended up happening. It was like this little like pep talk, and I was like, we can do this, ladies, we can do it. And here we are. Here we are.
Yeah, and
Like we just started from nothing, and you know what the biggest thing was, at the in the end, I wanted all of us to be the example that women could do it. Like we can do anything, and we're not going to have anyone tell us that we can't. And I think just being that kind of like a mission statement, I guess, even when we started this, was so important. We are women and we are strong and we can do anything that the guys can do too. Like we can do anything. It's so awesome.
I remember that moment. That was amazing.
It's like one of my favorite moments of all time with you guys was when we decided that this was going to happen.
and so much hard work from all of us. We applied for the artist relief fund, for the COVID artist relief fund. Yeah, and we were able to. That's how we were doing. We're going about thinking and planning. How can we make this happen? And so, at the beginning of that, when we were afforded a small sum from the fund, we went out and got soundproofing for the ceiling. That was like the first step, was red and black, the band colors, and painting the walls and setting up the drums.
And even Johnny came by with the wood platform for the drums.
With her electric saw.
And we were we got the bass traps, and
we put it on top of the Tucson. Remember, we strapped it down to the Tucson and drove it back.
And yeah, really everything has been so DIY, learning as we go, and now I just feel so much more confident. Of course, there are things we would have done differently, but everything's a process, and learning how to patch the cables and route them, down the hall to the interface, and yeah, it's really just been an amazing journey, and feeling like we can have that kind of power over our own sound, and getting to explore the sound, especially within Pro Tools, and it's a whole new world that's just incredible, and I feel like that's the double-edged.
I know, and I was going to say that. I think the only thing aside from all of this great journey that we've had all together, once we had decided to do it ourselves, I do wish that for any young woman coming into audio engineering, that they wouldn't, as much as we cherish that moment together as ourselves, I don't think that has to be a requirement for any women to go through.
Exactly.
Like what we went through was
intense.
Was intense, and it was situational of things, of the way that, because of COVID and other things that we were trying to get done. But just for any aspiring female engineer or person of color, I don't want them to be met with that, where they have to go through all the experience until the bitter fact that they have to say, you know what, I'm gonna do this myself, but then have to have that special moment. That moment should be able to be shared with everyone, is what I truly believe.
I agree. I definitely agree.
That's when it wraps back to that point of just that diversity, I think.
Dan asked, would it make sense for the for AES to have a meeting/panel discussion about how to create a non-sexually harassing audio working environment. And I do think that that would be an interesting topic to pursue specifically. I'm curious what the rest of you think. To me, it's very much sort of like I did include that in the presentation because I do think it is part of what needs to be tackled in order to increase the representation of women in the industry. I'm just curious if you have any idea as to like what the structure of that would be.
I feel like that's a complicated issue because at the end of the day, you might be getting another, you know, room full of men who are kind of being told proper ways. So it's almost, it's not excluding women, but again, it comes back, I think, to, I think maybe incorporating women into the studios and even having someone present, even just another member present or someone present during these interning or studio time to kind of help navigate those relationships. In my experience, that's led to better relations than so what do you think?
I think a guided discussion really focused more on like interactions and sort of working through people's viewpoints would be an excellent direction to go for that. While like presenting it and presenting our experiences is important, it's not necessarily going to be as constructive to just have that be the format that it takes, I think. So if I do think that like putting something together along those lines would actually be an excellent idea to see what form it could take. Let's see, next as far as questions.
Yeah, Lawrence, I agree a little bit. It would, like Lillian saying, the format would be crucial.
Well, I mean, I think not to be, well, I just will be blunt about it. It's if you've looked at what's happened in the country over the last 4 years and the last 1 year in particular, I was listening to somebody from the Black Lives Matter movement speaking, and really with an air of resignation, saying, "I'm no longer interested in trying to teach a racist how not to be racist." And I'm not now saying us versus them. It isn't that, but you can't. If you're going to take it on as your mission to re-educate people who are stuck in an ancient and old, just a horrible way of being, I'll just have to put it that way. That's just what it is. You can't argue them out of it, and you're wasting your time. There's way better things that I think we could do. Not that it's a waste of time to try to elevate the entire discussion, which everything that's been said here today, I completely believe in, is absolutely true. But think about it, the PNW section, I mean,
right.
We're going to have a meeting and it's going to be to how to have a non-harassing workplace. I mean, I'm sorry, the audio recording industry is, face it, it's a dying industry. It's not a growth industry. It's a dying industry. And it's being reborn now, partly exactly from what you guys are doing, which is with the explosion of personal technology, so that we're not any longer required to have to kowtow to a label system, and to use a $3 million studio, which would be great. I would love it, you know, to be able to record at the record plant or wherever, but you can do a whole lot in your own gosh darn studio, and you guys even built it yourself. So if you look at the great recording engineers, many of them are self-taught anyway. So none of the which is to say to second guess yes, all of this needs to be reformed. We need a cultural reawakening, like across our whole society, about race and gender and all that. I completely agree. But I don't think that if we focus on trying to talk a racist out of being racist, we're going to get anywhere. It's, you know, there's other things that we have to do and time is running short. And I don't think that's, I mean, for me, I'm not gonna waste my time with it. I realize as a cis white male, it's not really my place to say that, because I don't have a big
Right.
axe to grind here, right? I'm not the one who's being discriminated against, and I understand that. But man, trying to touch, I mean, the people that I grew up with, that I always felt uncomfortable around as they were telling the sexist, racist jokes, where I felt I had to keep my mouth shut so I wouldn't get beat up, even though I completely disagreed with it. And I'm not complaining. I mean, like I say, I'm, you know, I've been on the receiving end of a lifetime of privilege, so I understand that. But you can't teach an old dog new tricks, and I would say I wouldn't bother trying, really.
I want to speak to that from a little bit of different angle, because I agree in part, you know, especially as a woman of color in the BLM movement, it's exhausting. No, you don't want to be the one to try to change someone's mind or try to educate them and tell them how they should behave and why that's good. However, if a babysitter is needed, then I'm almost thinking that might be a way to go with putting women, you know, into studios, because yes, the bedroom engineering thing, that's definitely not just a result of COVID, but women taking control of sound and their love for audio. But studios, we're still going to go to studios. I mean, even
absolutely. And you're absolutely right about that. Yes, there should be women in every recording studio. I completely, if that's what we're talking about, please don't misunderstand me. That's the way to change it, because I've seen it in my industry and in everything I've done, and from A Life in Rock and Roll and a bunch of other stuff, is that when you're in a diverse environment, everybody's elevated. Everybody's elevated, because right? It's only when you're in that homogenous white male environment that this stuff kind of festers,
which is
and you get it right. I mean, and that's just exactly, it's everywhere, right? So yes, anyway, more women in studios. Yes, let's make it happen.
And that's like, well, how do you do that with pretty much all of the points that Lillian was making too, with our experiences? You know, we tried to have women in the studios and it didn't work. So then what do you do?
Yeah, I think that's very important. I think that, especially with, like, you can have a lot of technology at home, and that's a good point, that there is a growth at home, but I think the core of the conversation is just like, and as far as AES goes, it's just the representation of women in the field, and also just being respected. I think that just aside from that standpoint, just the respect of, and just feeling safe. How do I put it? Just like, it shouldn't be as hard to find that, or even to the point that we have to talk about it. I think that any cis white male that goes into a studio doesn't have to even worry about that. Sort of like just a small comparison, just to, like, you know, when women have to go outside at night and, like, look behind their backs, things that men typically don't have to worry about. I don't think that, just trying to, like, the reason why that diversity is so important is just because those are the things that we want to get rid of. It's not just that, you know, a racist will be a racist, or that we have to retrain someone to do nice things, or just like, just because if you were to tell me that, like, oh, Ryan, you want to record your album, right? Well, I'm just going to advise you, don't go to the studio down on 70th. And I'll be like, why? Oh, because that person is whatever, and they're going to be that way. More like, you should just go to this way. But I'm like, but why does this have to exist in the scene? Where if you're saying, like, get women into every studio, I just feel like there's just that's why that representation matters. Like, those kind of things, like, shouldn't have to be like, I shouldn't have to be told that as a woman to, like, I was like, make sure you choose wisely where you go, because there's things that you can't change. There's things out there that you just can't fix. Like, so make sure you choose wisely. And,
well, like, and who's in charge of those people anyway? Yes. Then maybe they're not the right people for that studio. in my opinion. And I also think if the studio, system isn't working, is there a way for the PNW section to try to start something new, maybe just from the ground up, a new kind of learning, hands-on experience, training that seeks, female teachers, non-binary teachers, people of color as professors, even if it's all virtual. But you go in groups, however COVID is at that point, to a studio to learn. And I think maybe instead of trying to fix a broken system, is there a new answer? Is there something new that we can try that's starting fresh, specifically with this goal in mind? Right, get women into every studio, exactly. So how do you even do that? We tried to be women in a studio, and it didn't work. It went very badly. So I think that it's about looking at who's managing these, who's on top, what's the problem there, and if the problem is pervasive, what can we do about it?
But even,
or can we start something totally new?
Even if Angie and I had the resources to open a studio of our own and to get it off the ground and actually get to the point where we could have any artist record to us, I guess my question would be, what because of that diversity or the insecurity, or just like I don't want women doing this, because I don't know, like, if I there's been experiences where someone's come up to me and they'll ask me, like, even if like I said, like when I went to a show and someone went up to my bandmates and said, "Who's the front person for this band?" I said, "I am." They almost didn't believe me. They looked for the first male, because if I'm just a woman walking in with my guitar, it's like, well, that's cute, you play, but where's the band leader?
And that happens so much.
So like that would be my fear, or my question about even if you were to say get women in any studio, what would it look like, even if a woman were to finally get her studio off the ground, not needing to do things from home, or if Angie and I get to a point where we want to start recording bands here, how would we be treated if we were to invite male bands over and be like, "Here, we're gonna record your band." How does that treatment look? Not just being told as an audio engineer, like learning. If we get to a point where we say, "Okay, I'm gonna record you," what does that treatment look like?
Well, then we get to another issue of women being in charge, and how that looks and how that's gone.
So.
Yeah,
but I just want to say that I don't think it's just like I don't think it's like an old dinosaur thing, like this is the way it's always going to be, people can never change. I think the problems, there's a lot of deeper stems to that. So because the people, the men who get, the younger generation of men who get taught, like, you can totally say that, because I've said that my whole life and I've never had a problem. And they're like, cool, so when I go to the studio I can just tell her what I want, do all this, and just make sure she knows.
Well, since we're still on the topic, just to clarify, and I just want to make sure I don't leave this meeting and having anybody think that I was suggesting anything that I wasn't actually suggesting. So yes, I am not suggesting that we live with the old dinosaurs and that's the only thing that we're going to keep doing, right? So the work that you're addressing, the fact that the PNW section is having this meeting, this is all essential work and it has to happen. And for what it's worth, which may not be much, is I am utterly optimistic in thinking that it is starting to change. It's just going to take another generation. And what I meant about the dinosaurs is they literally have to die off. I know these people. I've worked with them all my life, and they're not getting better. And that's why I tied it into the race thing, because I think it's very equivalent. It's very equivalent. These are old ways of being that are supported by a system that is currently crumbling, and we're watching it crumble. So yes, you have to do this fight, and for what it's worth, and I'm there with you every step of the way. I feel personally absolutely committed that it is the work of this generation, but it's going to be that whole sphere has to die out, and it'll be your generation, your guys' generation, the young people, because a lot of this systemic misogyny and racism is much less prevalent in young people than it is in my generation of old people. And that's where the hope lies, I really think. I mean, if we have any hope of making any of the big changes that have to happen, which includes things like climate change, it's gender, it's race, it's all of these things. And the people fighting against this are the people in power, with money and power, and they're going to fight tooth and nail. And so I think this is a generational battle. And when I say you guys, I'm just looking at most of the people being younger than me, fighting this fight and taking advantage of the technology that's emerging to make this change. And eventually it'll change, but it's going to take a long time.
Right, but it's also something that can be worked on now and by everyone. Like, as you say, we have to wait for, well, we don't have to wait for those who hold those old views that'll never change to leave the industry. I mean, we can make the conscious choice right now to no longer work with those people. And yes, a lot of them are the ones with the power and the money, but if we can cut them out of our working lives, then that's something that we should do, so that we don't perpetuate those kind of viewpoints and create that kind of unwelcoming environment.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more.
Does anyone have any other questions?
Comments? Yes.
Rachel has a good point that it's not just older men. So we shouldn't focus on this like monolithic idea as to who the problem is, because that can cause us to ignore the really pervasiveness of it. It is true that there are a lot of really wonderful people in the younger generations. I'm always amazed and so happy and hopeful when I talk with like 19, 20, 21-year-old kids that are so progressive and accepting in their viewpoints, especially in the Seattle area. But there are also a large number of them that have taken on those old, outdated, sexist and racist viewpoints and continue to perpetuate it. It's sort of like, the experiences I shared with guys in bands really being only interested in me when they think I'm going to sleep with them. If they can only view women as sex objects and not as potential collaborators, then we can work to change that, sure, but we have to decide where our efforts are best focused. Do we try and change the people who aren't going to change, or do we create an environment and a culture where if they want to exist in it, they have to choose to change for themselves?
Exactly. Yes. And that's kind of what I'm wondering too. Is there a way to have that conversation within the section, even talking about Seattle studios and where would it be worth having a story, about a woman, which studios a woman feels safe in? Not to put anyone on blast, but that's kind of what we're talking about now, is that it's almost personal messaging between women who are asking each other who's safe. We talk to each other a lot about who can I trust? Where can I go where something's not going to happen? And that's real day-to-day life. And it's definitely not just an older generation either.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else? Nice, David.
Thanks, David.
Yeah, as Rachel says, these experiences are not rare. I mean, I'm transgender, so I got to spend a giant chunk of my life living as a man. And when I transitioned, I was not only shocked to start experiencing these things myself, but then shocked to be speaking with women and realizing that just everyone goes through these experiences. Everyone gets to deal with the anxiety of, going back to my own personal experiences, going to work with someone and then they lock us in the room. And then having to then have that on my mind and trying to be proactive in ensuring that the situation doesn't go sexual at all, just in case that is a direction that they want to go in, and now I'm trapped in the room with them. Because even if you can go and unlock it yourself, that's 1 to 2 seconds where they can grab you. And though, like, the vast majority of interactions, obviously that doesn't happen, that's something that's constantly on our mind and something that we're constantly aware of. And that's a lot of mental energy to have to deal with, when what we should be focused on is the work and the music that we're making. And ultimately what that leads to is, okay, I don't want to work with this person anymore. So that's a lost contact, and whatever contacts may come out of that. That's, going back to the topic of safe studios. There are some studios that are just not safe, with people who operate them that are not safe. Again, another locked door instance. I was touring a studio to see if I wanted to work out of it, and the studio manager locked the door behind us. And then in my mind, I'm just like, okay, here's this strange guy that I've never really met before. And we're in a studio, which means that it's soundproof, which means that if anything happens, no one's going to be able to hear me to come and help. And nothing happened, thankfully. But that's what is on my mind as I'm supposed to be checking out the acoustics and the equipment. And it's very fatiguing, and it really makes you not really want to go out into places. And, as I said in the chat, that's part of why I like the Vera project, is because we are ostensibly focused on like elevating voices and providing a safe space for everybody. And I feel safe working there. And it's a lot nicer to just go to a place that I know is going to be safe than it is to have to go into that unknown. And yeah, I do agree, Dan, we absolutely should allow people to start speaking rather than just typing.
All right. If I may, just once again, thank you so much to our panel tonight, Angela and Ryan and Johnny and Lillian. And of course, earlier, the message from Cecilia and Mary. We really, really appreciate you being here and for helping us talk about these topics, very important topics. I've asked Jess to help us call on people tonight. Jess, are you there? Would it be okay if we move on to introductions now, as Dan implied? Jess, would you like to go ahead and call on folks and they can introduce themselves? Thanks.
Sure. Yeah. And so if folks are comfortable turning on your video or leaving them off, it's okay. And I just want to start by thanking everyone who's here, especially the presenters, especially the section for hosting this very important meeting. And really at this point, we just go around and introduce ourselves, say where we're currently located and how we're affiliated with the industry. But I'm seeing here, before we do that, were there any other like Q&A comments that folks just wanted to speak about? Or I'm looking in the chat here saying Dan meant people getting into continuing the conversation verbally. So we could do that before or after.
We're in the introduction part now, so we might as well just do that.
Okay, sounds
Don't you
good.
think?
Sounds good. So I'll just let you know who I am since I'll be calling on everyone. Jess Berg, currently in Bellingham, Washington. Came up and cut my teeth in live sound in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I've been a live sound engineer for 17 years, done some studio and broadcast work, moved to LA, got into tour management and production management, toured the world, and moved up to the Pacific Northwest in 2019 and joined the Audio Engineering Society. So I'm really happy to be here and be a part of this group. Still getting to meet everyone around with COVID and everything, but great to be here. So I'm just gonna go through the list here and let's see, Greg, if you could introduce.
Hello, everybody. I'm Greg Dixon, and I'm an audio educator. I currently work at DigiPen Institute of Technology, and I'm working as assistant professor of music and sound design there. My area of focus is game audio and research, and I'm really interested in interactive audio of any sort. So whether it be installation art, live concert music with interactive audio systems, and things like that. And then I'm also an avid recording, mixing, and mastering engineer as well. And of course, the section chair. And thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Greg. And I'm going to go through just how everybody's placed, how I see folks. So Mary Mazurek.
Hi. Well, I got a great introduction from Greg earlier, but I'm Mary Mazurek. I'm based in Chicago. I've been working as an audio engineer for 30 years now. My specialty is classical music recording and acoustic music recording. And I was nominated for an Engineering Grammy Award 2 years ago.
Awesome. Thanks, Mary. Cecilia Wu.
Hi, everyone. My name is Cecilia Wu. I am a kind of a music, computer music programmer. Mostly my work, like 10 years ago when I was younger, in my 20s, I worked for Universal Music Group in the greater China area. I was a music producer, singer-songwriter, and audio engineer. And then I went to United States and pursued my graduate studies. And since then, I started to do kind of interactive sound design, new musical interface design and evaluation, that kind of stuff. Yeah, so this is great to be here with you and hear your voice. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Cecilia. Angie Dane.
Hi, I'm Angie, and I am a women's studies professor, and I am a new mix engineer, which I love, and I'm a drummer for Atrocity Girl, and yeah, music has been a part of my life for the bulk of my life. I started drumming very casually when I was 2, so I love percussion, and I love being able to make music with my friends.
Cool, thank you. Ryan Lee.
Hi, I'm Ryan. I'm a barista in the Seattle area and musician. I play in 3 bands: Mallory, Kitty Junk, and Atrocity Girl. I play bass, guitar, sing, drums, multi-instrument, and I'm aspiring a new audio engineer, learning that journey. So, and I'm happy to be here, and I appreciate and love knowing all of you thus far.
Awesome. Thank you for being here. Johnny Angel.
Hey guys, I'm Johnny Angel, and I front vocals and I do guitar for the band Atrocity Girl. Also the co-owner of Atrocity Music. This is sort of my first year into really discovering audio and engineering, which I've picked up from Angie and Ryan. Right now, I'm currently enrolled in film classes online, so I can integrate our songs into film and um, on that side of things. And I'm originally from Anchorage, Alaska. I've been living down here for the last 7 years or so, and yeah, playing music with the girls for the last few years.
Awesome. Thank you. Lillian Blair.
I'm Lillian, producer and engineer in the Seattle area and audio educator. Been involved with music since I was 3, I believe. Angie, do you want to mention the thing that we're doing?
Gear fanatics?
Yeah. So it was mentioned a little earlier, but the latest project that we're working on, Angie and I are co-founding a website called Gear Fanatics, focused on providing a platform for equipment and engineering discussion, but also in elevating the voices of underrepresented members in the audio industry. So not just women, but people of color, queer people, people who are neurodiverse. And we are having an open call for submissions. We want to hear your thoughts on whether it's a technique or a piece of equipment or just being who you are in the industry, and are hoping to then help elevate those voices and show the industry that it's not just the white men that seem to dominate the online discussion space.
That's awesome. Thank you, Lillian. Gary Louie.
Hi, I'm the recording person for the University of Washington School of Music in Seattle, and I'm secretary of the AES Pacific Northwest section, and I am the chair of the Tellers Committee for the AES, which handles the worldwide elections, and I'm a lifetime AES member.
Awesome. Thanks, Gary. Lawrence.
I'm Lawrence Schwedler. I'm the director of the Music and Sound Design degree programs at the DigiPen Institute in Redmond, Washington here. Those are 4-year undergraduate programs in music and sound design for video games and film. I'm also the treasurer of the PNW AES section, been working with these guys for years. And it's really cool to see this happening here now. So thank you, gals. Keep it up.
Thanks, Lawrence. Janie Wallach.
Yeah, I'm Janie, and when bands used to play live, I used to record them.
Thanks, Janie.
That's so sad. Oh my God.
It'll come back.
It'll come back.
Yeah, someday.
Yes, it will. Dan Mortensen.
Hi, thank you. I'm on the committee of the AES and have been for, I think, 31 out of the last 32 years, which is pretty amazing. And I've had a live sound company in Seattle for almost 48 years, which is even more amazing. And I've actually did a gig last month, my first live audience PA gig since February 29th, and I've got another one just like it coming up in a couple of weeks. It's a gymnastics competition of all things. So it's been fun to get back to work, and thanks for the thought-provoking discussion tonight.
Awesome. Thank you, Dan. Ben Melby.
Ben Melby here. See, I've been in the industry by like 28 years, combination of mostly touring, front of house monitors, you know, being a tour manager, production manager, everything under the sun. Live in Seattle currently. Other than that, AES member. But I do have to say, if I can just interject, Lillian, Angie, Ryan, Mary, whoever I'm missing here, this is a conversation that's needed to happen for a long time. Thank you all. Bravo for this.
Awesome. Thanks, Ben. Rod Evenson.
Rod Evenson. I live in Milwaukee, Oregon, do recording work in the Portland metropolitan area, and principally classical music. The principal public face of my work is on All Classical Radio here in Portland, All Classical FM, and that's pretty much my game. So.
Thanks, Rod. Katie Gray.
Hi, I'm Katie Gray. I'm out of Seattle, Washington. Started, I guess, in music when I was 4 on the violin and sort of just kept going on it. Ended up in a psychoacoustics lab when I was in school and really liked acoustics. So now I work in architectural acoustics for Stantec, and I do consulting. So my favorite spaces to design are still musical. Studios are the most fun, and I'll put concert halls and music rooms after that. So yeah, that's me. Thank you. It's been a really great conversation tonight.
Thank you, Katie. Rachel Field.
Hi, everybody. I am Rachel Field of Resonant Mastering in Seattle. So co-owner and mastering engineer. I also do freelance recording and a little bit of mixing in a couple places around town. And yeah, just to echo the sentiment, I'm so glad this conversation is happening, and let's see how we can move forward. I've been in the industry here for like 11 years and some change now, and it's not limited to being new. I'll just say, so it persists even with experience and credits and all of that. So thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Rachel. Steve Wilkins. Steve Wilkins, are you there? Maybe he stepped away. All right, I'll move on. Mac Perkins.
Sorry. I'm Mac Perkins. I'm up on Whidbey Island. Back in the day, I did a lot of studio maintenance around Seattle. I've had my head behind a lot of things. No smiles, Rick. But I've been largely out of audio. I did theater sound reinforcement for quite a while. Worked in and around all of the theaters in Seattle and all over Washington State. I'd like to think that theater is a little more enlightened, but not really. And I've been around the business for about 50 years now, and have seen a lot of what you're talking about, and it's long beyond time for change. So more power to you.
Thanks, Mac. Lisa Finkrell.
Hi, my name's Lisa Finkrell. I live in Seattle, Washington. I am an attorney by day and an audio engineer and theatrical sound designer by evening and weekend when there's not a pandemic. I've been a professional audio engineer for coming up on 15 years. And yeah, this was all sadly very affirming. And I agree that these are the difficult conversations that we need to continue having. So thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Lisa. And I see in the chat here, Steve doesn't have a video or mic, but musician, worked in acoustic consulting and University District of Seattle. So thanks, Steve, for being here. Rick Chin.
Hi, I'm the webmaster for the B&W section. I'm a Life AES member. At one time, I did live sound. Notably, Mac Perkins and I and Charlie Morgan did the sound for the grand opening of the King Doom way back in, let's see, what was that, 76. So anyway, I've transitioned out of live sound and I do more recording now, specializing in acoustic music, orchestras and choirs, and I also do electronics. I don't do video, I don't do ladders, and I don't do lights.
Thank you, Rick. Tom Stiles.
Hi there, I'm Tom Stiles, and I'm a recording engineer and instructor at Jack Straw Cultural Center. I've been fortunate to work with women engineers there and women interns. Our executive director, Joan Rabinowitz, tries to make the workplace as inclusive as possible, and been able to work in an environment where openness to anybody who comes in, all artists and engineers of whatever background and talent they can offer are welcome. And that certainly enriched my my own career and experience there. I do live sound when there was live sound at Seattle Center, which is also a place that I have learned a great deal from the women that I've worked with there, and appreciate the ability to do that.
Well, thanks, Tom.
Just also mention that I mentioned to Aisha, my colleague, this meeting, and she wasn't able to attend tonight, but she's going to check out the Facebook group.
Awesome. Yeah, spread the word. That's a good group. I'm in it too. Gary Gottlieb.
Hi, I'm Gary Gottlieb, a longtime engineer, producer, originally from the New York scene and moved around a little bit, taught in a few places. And really, when I was working a lot in New York in the 80s, a lot of us were shaking our heads and saying, why aren't there more women doing this? Women are better at this than we are. They should be, you know. And anyway, I've been working on diversity and inclusion for decades, including the AES committee, D&I committee. I'm currently the vice chair of the San Francisco section and former vice president of the Eastern region, and living in Ukiah, California now.
Cool. Thanks, Gary. Juliet.
Hi. Sorry, I have had everybody on speaker because I'm going to do an MRI. So, but just a brief introduction. I am gladly a new member of AES, very thankful that the PNW section welcomed me in. And I'm a member of Sound Girls, and I'm so thankful for the opportunity to learn sound from Sound Girls as well. I graduated from UC Santa Cruz a long time ago. I am a woman of color with a disability that leaves me immunocompromised. So it's kind of a triple whammy, different things to think about, especially over the pandemic, a lot to think about in terms of how to continue when things open up again and whether to continue wearing masks and stuff. But I did theater and event production before I got more fully into music and audio. And so, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Is
go
it
ahead. You're good,
okay?
Juliet. Yeah, sorry.
So now yeah, I'm pretty much I'm also working in music journalism, so I really tried to have my finger on the pulse, both technically from the engineer end and from the artist end of how things are going to look for the future. So thank you everybody for your input tonight.
Thanks for being here. Good to see you, Juliet. I met Juliet years ago through Sound Girls, and she's rad. Wendy Grand. Oh, I think you're still muted.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yep, you're good.
Hi, so I'm not a member of the AES, but I've been involved in the film and video realm for about a decade. I started off my career studying film and video at Seattle Central, and I kind of worked my way through indie films, being a boom op utility, and did a few years of work on reality TV, worked my way out from a PA to a location audio mixer. I stepped away from that for a little bit to do some video editing, corporate work. So I'm just kind of, since COVID, been a little out of work. But this has been a great discussion. I'm pretty happy to hear what's going on locally. You know, on the east side, I haven't met too many women in the industry, so this is making me pumped.
Hey, thanks, Wendy. And it looks like Steve Turnage is here. Steve, we're doing
Hi, I had
intros.
to take off. Thank you. I'm Steve Turnage. I'm a mastering engineer, circuit board designer, and I've been part of the AES locally for a long time. And I wrote a couple of books, and I'm very happy to be having this happen tonight. So thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Steve. And I think that's everybody. Did I miss anyone? I think we're good. So let the discussion commence and continue.
Well, I'd like to thank everybody for being here tonight. And, what I think is this meeting has been really great. It's been great to hear from all of our guest speakers. Obviously, this discussion needs to continue. And so I welcome ideas from people to give us their thoughts and ideas about what we can do in the future to bring these issues to light and to continue to provide a focus on these issues. And so I hope that you also have gotten something from this meeting and been able to take things away from it. As I said, it doesn't stop here. We have to keep working on this. And please let me know if you have ideas or things that you think would be good for us to feature here in the AES, and we'll do what we can.
Greg, can I just add on to that? We've had these PNW section meetings now I think it's been 8 years I've been on the committee, and we have never had this many women show up at our meeting. So I think that's a great first step. Unfortunately, it may be a first step, but anyway, thank you guys. This is just really, really good. And I hope we're at the beginning of something good.
Thanks, Lawrence. What does anybody, Angela, do you have any final words for us, or Lillian, Mary, Cecilia?
I would just like to say thank you to everyone for coming and for speaking, and great discussion. Definitely needs to continue, and I thanks to Greg as well for really being so receptive and open to this topic. I know that it can be difficult. And one last thing I just wanted to throw out there for anyone who is interested. Mix Like a Girl is a handbook that's being written by Caridad Espinosa from Ecuador, and she is in the process of moving to Seattle, and she's writing this handbook from her experience as a mix engineer, tailored specifically to aspiring women in the field. And so just if anyone is interested in supporting that book, she's offering some.
Highly recommend.
Yeah, highly recommend. But it's just a good mission. She's really wanting it to be a collaborative effort with other women in the field. Emily Lazar and Rachel Field will be offering some fun mastering advice. So I hope that is part of the conversation too, not only on the physical side, but from publishing. I know Cecilia was talking about publishing too, or the academic side. Caridad is really working to put something together.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on. I think this is a great event. Actually, we need more kind of this events to happen, in the future, so we can have these more women to be showing up. And then, this is a great starting point as our new tenure. Please join us. And if you have any questions, concerns, please, we will type our email address here again. So if you have any kind of idea or kind of suggestions or concerns about, our diversity inclusion issues among the whole globally AES sessions, please reach out. And thanks for having us again. Mary, want to say something?
Yeah, thank you so much for having us, and thank you very much for presenting this topic. We need to have more discussions around diversity, equity, and inclusion in audio, and this is a great example of that.
And thanks, Matt, for organizing this. This is wonderful.
And I would like to thank the AES Pacific Northwest chapter, Greg, for organizing this, for giving us a platform to speak and an environment to share our experiences and our viewpoints on what needs to be done to make the industry a more equitable place. We can also always have these conversations with ourselves as we do, but to be able to share them with other people from not just in Seattle, but from other places is really an important thing to be able to do. And I hope everyone's able to take away a better understanding of the realities of what women face in the industry, and maybe can come up with an idea or two about actions that you specifically can take to help increase representation and making it a more equitable and welcoming place.
I agree with Lillian. I just want to say the same thing. Thank you for listening and hearing your experiences. It means a lot to me personally and to us as a Trusted Girl. And then also, just thank you. I think this is a good stepping point. Just even for AES to just have a place where these conversations can happen more, and be inviting for women to come and have these conversations, not just to happen, but eventually to the point where it can just be that integral co-op will happen. It won't be a thing anymore. That's what we're striving for, and definitely have a place where we can always talk about what we can do better, and get to a place where there's always an open book to just talk about issues that are happening, what we can do to solve those issues. Thank you.
Okay, everyone. Thanks again. I think that it's a good time now to conclude, and keep in mind that real quick, next month, please join us on April 7th for the Casper Baby Pants meeting. Hope to see you there. And thanks again, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. See you next time.
Take care, everybody. Stay healthy and well.
You too.